Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Find Me in a Book podcast. I'm glad that you're back, glad that you're here. Today, we are going to be talking about Change of Heart by Kate Canterbary, which before we get into it, I didn't know that she has many, many books out. I have only known her from the series, the Friendship Rhode Island ones, In a Jam. The other one, I think it was called Shucked. Those are the only two that I've known her from. And so I thought that she was like a pretty new author. And I was like waiting for the next one to come out in that series. And then I saw that she came out with this one, which is called Change of Heart. And I was like, wait, okay, I should know. I feel like I should know these characters. Like throughout it, there was just like kind of I don't know, like emphasis towards certain characters that I was like, I, how I feel like I should know them, but I don't. And then it wasn't until the very end that I was like, oh my gosh, like she has so many books out. Like she has quite a few series, and they're the series that are in here. Let me go to that page. Yeah, she has so many. So she has like Vital Signs. So let's see, Before Girl and the Worst Guy. Those characters are in this book. And then there is, let's see, I think there are a few other like characters that have their own books, but there's the Walsh series, which that has 9 books in that series. And then we have the Santillian triplets, which there's 3 books in that series. We have the Talbot's Cove. That is 4 books in that series. The Benchmark series, there's 2 in there. And then Brothers in Arms, there's 2 in that. Like, where have I been? Like, I enjoyed her other 2 books, like In a Jam and Shucked. I love them. And I guess I just didn't do enough research and look more into her as an author to know that she has these books. I'm a fan. I want to read all these other series because once again, this book was incredible. Like her other 2 books, I was like enamored by them. They were so good. And the same with this one. Like, I absolutely loved this one. I wouldn't say that it's like a top 5 or a top 10, just because, like, I don't know why actually it wouldn't. It was just so good, and I can see it easily going onto someone's like top 5 and top 10. I don't know, like it was very enjoyable, and I loved everything about her writing. I loved her characters. I loved the Mountain Spice. Like literally nothing wrong with this book, nothing wrong. I just i don't know. I don't know why it's not a favorite. Does that make sense? Like, you can like a book and have it not be your favorite. And I love this book, and it's not in my top favorites. But I will recommend it to people. I absolutely will recommend this book to people. And like I said, the spice was the perfect amount. Like, it was spicy. Like, and it was descriptive, but not like crude. Like, and there was enough tension build up. And oh my gosh, can we talk about Henry? He is the main male character. He is so swoon worthy. He's the one that falls first. Like, he just enamored by her. And I love it. So I'm excited to get into this book. There's not going to be like a lot of spoilers. It's mostly just like main plot and the timeline that it's going, and more about the characters. And there's not a twist in this book at all to really have it be like spoilers. I'm just going to be talking about the book, talking about the characters, talking about like what I liked about them, what I liked about this writing and the author. Just, it's all positive. It really is, because there really wasn't anything wrong with this book. Like, the timing was perfect, the pacing was perfect, the storyline incredible. Like, there was no point in the book where I was like, okay, like this happened again, or like I was never bored. It was absolutely perfect, absolutely perfect. And they're doctors, and so that's like a field that I don't know a lot about. I have a brother-in-law that just started his residency like today, and so I was like, oh my gosh, is this what he's gonna have to go through? Like, it was great. I loved it. I loved it so much, and I highly, highly recommend this book. It was funny. It was so funny. I didn't chuckle out loud, but in my head, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's hilarious!" Like, and I can't tell you why it's not a favorite. I really can't. Like, I'm sure it will get to be a favorite the more that I think about it and really be like, oh yeah, I actually did really like this. Um, but yeah, 10 out of 10 recommend. Absolutely. Kate Canterbury is on my list of new favorite authors. That's what I can say, is that she's become a new favorite author. I wouldn't say this book was a favorite, but it was a great book. It really was. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because I just can't explain myself, and that's okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about, well, first, let's talk about if I recommend it to my mom or sister, mother standard. Probably not, because of the spice. If it wasn't so spicy, I would say yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I might recommend it to my sister, but I don't think that she would like put it up on her list. I will, though, recommend it to my sister-in-law, who she's the wife of the guy that just went into his residency. I will recommend it to her, and to my brother-in-law. His husband is a PA. And so I think they both would really like it, because they have spouses in the medical field. And I don't know, I feel like that would be kind of fun. So I will recommend it to them, because they do like spicy books. So, take that as you will. So we have Whitney. She is our main female character, and her best friend is Mary, and they're both doctors. Mary is in the neonatal, I want to say. There's something else with it. But Whitney is a transplant surgeon. So they're both like big deals. And they work in Boston. They live in Boston. But every summer, I don't know how long they've been doing this. They have this tradition. Oh, I guess it started back in med school. So they have this tradition where they go on these summer getaways. And the one we walk into starting this story is they've been gone for 17 days. They've been to 9 different hotels. They've crashed 7 weddings in their 3-week summer getaway. And that's what they do. And I believe it started back in med school, but like the wedding crashing, but that's what they do. They research these weddings. They have these certain rules, like you can't hook up with someone from like the bridal party, and you have to play the whole field. And like rule number 6, the bridal party is off limits. Like it doesn't go like rule number 1, rule number 2. And this is at the beginning of every chapter, but it kind of skips around. And it has some rules for like residency, and it just kind of moves around. It is a dual point of view. So Henry, we do get his point of view, and I loved it. I loved him. He is just a golden retriever boyfriend, and I love him so much. Like he's a big burly like man, and he just has a tender heart, and I can't even tell you how much I love this. So her and Mary are at this wedding, and come to find out, it's Henry's best friend, Mason, who is getting married. And so Henry is the best man. And so they're all at this wedding, and he sees Whitney for the first time, and he's just smitten. He's like, I need to know who she is. She kind of catches his eye, or like she notices him when he's in like standing there at like the altar and everything. And he can't like keep a straight face, because the aunt, we have a kooky aunt, which we love. She's very into astrology, and she gives them kind of these readings of their astrology during the ceremony. Like she has a little portion, and this is like a huge extravagant, I said that wrong weirdly, but extravagant wedding. And he is trying so hard not to laugh, and she thinks he's so rude. And so she like, Whitney, that's who I'm talking about. She rolls her eyes at him, and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with her. So They go to like the dinner like reception area, and she is like at the dessert table, and he approaches her, and they hit it off, they flirt, but she knows that he's like the best man, and so she's like, ooh, I can't really like do this. But he's like, let's go dance. I want to dance with you. And they get like hot and heavy. They have the best time. They like scream Taylor Swift at the top of their lungs. Like they just connect instantly. And so he's like, I never do this, but let's go back to the room, or my room, I guess. And she's like, okay, let's do it, because that's what they do. That's what her and Mary are there for. They crash these weddings. They have a great time. They have cake. They celebrate with the couple. They, of course, keep like their distance, but then they usually find someone to go back to their room with. Not like both of them together. Like Mary finds someone and Whitney finds someone. So she's like, okay, I really connected with this guy. It's just going to be a one night thing. Let's do this. And they are making their way onto the elevator when the kooky aunt comes in, and she accidentally, which I'm putting that in quotation marks, like finger quotations, she accidentally drops some of her tarot cards. And so she gives them this reading, and they're like, okay, who is this? Like, it's weird. It's wonderful. Like, all of these traditions that come along with these weddings and with the kooky aunt, and Whitney is just like, she loves it. So right after we have the kooky aunt, she gets off at her floor, and Henry makes a joke like, oh, she's trying to be my wing woman. And Whitney's like, oh, so you need like the assist? And he's like, well, I'm married to my job. I have no life outside of my work. Like, it'll be another 5 or 6 years until I have like time for one. Whitney doesn't think anything of it. She's hot and bothered. Like, they go back to the room. We find out rule number 5, which is one night only, no overtime. And so she leaves. Like, the next morning, he's still asleep. She doesn't leave a number. She doesn't leave a name. They're supposed to give a fake name, but she actually gave him her real name, which is Whitney. And we think everything's settled. And so we learn a little bit more about Whitney. She has an only sister, and their relationship is kind of complicated. Her name is Bree. Their mom was in the military, in the Air Force, and she had like an affair with a married man, and he didn't want anything to do with Whitney or Bree. I think they have the same dad too. And so like had this affair ongoing, all the stuff. So her mom has kind of been absent from both of their lives. Like, she went back in the Air Force. Their grandma raised them. And then when she retired from the Air Force, she went to Colorado and just became like this very spiritual, hippie kind of, just very out there person. And so they don't talk to their mom. They absolutely don't talk to their dad. They've never really met their dad, I don't think. And so they just have a very complicated family dynamic. And even with Bree, Whitney has a hard time with. There's a couple different dynamics that you see within their relationship, and Whitney being the older sister and trying to take care of her younger sister, and their relationship is just not functioning like a normal relationship, which who really has a normal relationship with their siblings? And so she goes back to work. Whitney goes back to work, and she is the surgeon, and she's talking to these doctors. We go to Henry's point of view, and he is a little late to his first day at residency. And so he has been obsessing over Whitney. He's been trying to find her in pictures from the wedding. He thinks that she was part of the wedding party and knew, like, I think it was like the bride's father's side, because that's what she told him. And so he's trying to find her, has been obsessed with it. He is a little bit late on his first day of residency. They get their assignments and everything, and he sees her from down the hall, and he's like, oh my gosh, it's her. It's her. And so he tries to speak with her a little bit, and she's like, this can't happen. Absolutely not. This can't happen. And he's like, can I see you? Like, can I take you out for coffee or something? Like when this rotation is over, because she was I think she was like his superior at the time, like at the very beginning. And she's like, maybe, okay, like once this rotation is over, like we can maybe go out and get coffee. And so it's very cute because towards the end, I mean, he was counting down the days from the very beginning, but towards the end, like, so was she. And there's a lot of tension between them. There's a lot of moments in like privacy, like the elevator a little bit, that he like kind of touches her on her arm and like little things like that. Like he gets her cupcakes, like he makes notes of the things that she likes, and gets her like her favorite pens, and he just makes like very very sweet gestures that she's not used to, that she's like, no, people always leave me, like I'm not good enough, like I don't know what this is, and I don't want to know what this is because it's not going to go anywhere. I can't do this anyways because like I'm a surgeon, like I have to make sure like everything is ethical. And like just how they come together and figure out their dynamics is very very sweet, very cute. I love it. We find a little bit more about Henry, that apparently, I mean, we don't know a lot about his family. I want to say that he has a sister, but we don't know very much about her. His parents had a really, really ugly divorce. He doesn't talk to them, it sounds like. They really weren't involved in the story at all. His best friend Mason is involved in the story later on. Just because, yeah, he comes into play with the story. He has a failed marriage, and even though they like just got married, and yeah, he's a character for sure. But Henry, he was a paramedic in Lake Tahoe. That's where the wedding was in Lake Tahoe, and he was a paramedic. He wanted a bigger challenge. Like he was going up on ski mountains and rescuing people. Like he had this experience going into it, and it was, I think when he turned 30 or when he started his 30s, he was like, you know what, I need a new challenge. And he decided to go to medical school. So he's older than most of the residents, because he started late, and he's cool with it. So that's his background. And he is so excited to see Whitney because, like I said, he kind of became obsessed with her. Like if this wasn't in like a book, then it would be like, oh, that's kind of a lot. Like he really like obsessed over her. And you would think it was kind of creepy, but because it's in this book, it's like, oh, that's so sweet. But yeah, there's a lot of like relatable content in here, a lot of relatable about the stories. Bree, who is Whitney's sister, she has Crohn's disease. And so that's another reason why Whitney has tried to like take care of her whole life. Like there are very real problems in this story, and I really really liked that it wasn't just like all sweet roses and sunshine and everything. Like no, these really seem like real people, and I love that Kate Canterbary has done that because she did that in the other two books that I've read as well. And as this rotation goes about, I honestly, I want to say the rotation is maybe like a month, maybe 2 months. I know that it said, but I didn't write it down. But they like count down the days, and then when he does get transferred to a different rotation, they just are so excited to be together. They of course have to keep it secret, and he is still so sweet, and she is opening up towards him. They of course have a very spicy like relationship, but they even before the rotation was ended, they would find themselves like calling each other at night and just talking for hours and hours, like getting to know each other, which I thought was so great because sometimes in these books, like they just really dive deep into like the sexual relationship, and then like the I don't know, the verbal, I guess you could say, or like the friendship comes later, and it's like built with the sexual relationship. But with this, I really felt like they gained a friendship first. And of course, they had that tension and everything, but nothing could happen until the rotation was over. So they were able to talk to each other for hours. They became friends. Like they really started to enjoy each other and their jokes between each other and them having to kind of keep it hidden at work and that just building more tension. Like, it was beautiful. It was perfect. And I loved it. Like, literally 10 out of 10. And we see Henry go through his different rotations and trying to figure out what he really likes. He really likes trauma surgery, but he also really liked pediatric surgery. And these characters, they're funny. Like the people that are in Henry's little group, they call it a cohort, which there's three other individuals that we learn about and like their quirks, and they've been together since like medical school, and they just kind of like trauma bonded. And so we learn each about them, and there's this scene like later in the book that I was laughing out loud. It was so funny with what happened because he's like convinced that they're all mad at him because they found out that him and Whitney are together and he didn't tell them. But they're like, oh my gosh, no, like we don't even care about that. Like, this is actually what happened that night and why we reacted this way. And it was so funny, like so funny. And I'm not going to tell you because I want you to read it for yourself. It was so funny. And yeah, at one point in the book, Mason shows up and he's like, my marriage is over. Like, you told me at the beginning, because apparently his wife that he had like got married to, she had been cheating on him like years before, and Henry had tried to tell him, but he was like, no, 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 it's fine. And then it kind of all came to light. And so he crashes into Henry's like apartment. And so we go through kind of their relationship and friendship there. And we learn that Henry has gone to therapy because he was afraid of commitment, and Mason doesn't know that, and so he causes a little rift between Henry and Whitney, and so they have to go through a little bit of like working it out and have a little bit of a breakup at one point. You know, the third act break that a lot of these books have. And just the whole time, Henry is so patient with Whitney. Like he knows like her different types of facial expressions. Like he knows when she needs to be held. Like he just is so in tune with her that by the end she's like, he's not going to leave. Like he's going to be here for me. And just to see that all come together. And there's also like another little like secret, really, actually like a couple other secret relationships that we learn at the end that it's like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Like I freaking loved it. And Whitney is able to like stand up to her dad and really like sock it to him because he like let them down again, and just to see how everything flows, and it worked perfect. I'm going to say it again. The timing was perfect for all of these. I was never bored. It was smooth transitions, not a clunky storyline. And it was so good. And that's all I really want to tell you because I really want you to read this. Like, this is a book that I will put a stamp on. I don't know. Can we say that? Like, can I say that? Yeah, let's put it on Find Me in a Book, stamp approved. I don't know, approval. I know that if you've ever followed like Jeffree Star, he's like a makeup guy, but he says like Jeffree Star approved, where it's like, I kind of want to do that. Like, let's do Find Me in a Book approved. I don't know. Because I don't know, like not a lot of books get my approval. But you know when they do, because at the very beginning of each episode, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you have to read this, like 10 out of 10. And that's this book is one of those where I'm like, you have to read this. It's perfect. It's magical. It's like, I've run out of words how to describe this. Like you can tell as I like stutter through this episode that there's not enough words in my vocabulary, which that's a problem in general. I need more words in my vocabulary to describe things, but it's perfect. It's perfect. That's all I can say. And now I want to download all these books from Kate Canterbary so that I can know all these people, because like all these doctors, let's see. If you need to know more about Dr. Stremmel and Dr. Shapiro, you'll find them in The Worst Guy. For Dr. Hartshorn and his wife Stella, you'll want to read Before a Girl. For Dr. Ace Vado and his wife Erin. Check out The Spire for Dr. Emmerling and her husband Riley. They appear in Preservation. Like, I wish I would have read these books before I knew this. So, if you haven't started this book and you want to know all these characters, don't start with this one. I think that you'll want to start with The Worst Guy. That's what I'm guessing. But look into this series because I obviously didn't. I didn't. But I want to. I want to go back and I want to read all of these because I enjoyed these characters that came into play. Like, I loved all of them. They were all good guys. They were all good people. And I need to know their story. And there is one character, one doctor in there that at one point he's like, yeah, I'm going to go try and get with Dr. Aldrich, which is Whitney. And he says that to Henry. And Henry's like, no, you're not. Like, stop swinging. Like, stop it. And that's when this doctor is like, oh, okay. Like, I understand what you're putting down. And it's just like, it's just so funny. But yeah, I think that I've used all my words in my vocabulary to reference what I said earlier. So good. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about this month. I did my TBR on Instagram a little bit late in the month. So I feel like I still have those books on my TBR, but I'm going to try and read them pretty quickly. I don't know, just so that I can do another TBR. But I am about a fourth of the way through Divine by Mistake by PC Cast. And I want to say that she was really popular in like maybe the early 2000s, like maybe 2010. I'm not sure, but I've heard from a couple different people that they used to read her books and like they love them. And so I need to really look into that. And I think she's more popular than what I thought. So I want to finish that book. And then I did start on King of Pride by Anna Huang. Because I did that book last week, The King of Wrath, and I absolutely, absolutely loved it. That's another one where I don't know if it would be on my favorites, which I don't know what I said last week. I don't know if it would be on one of my favorites list, but it was so good. Like, absolutely loved it. I do have a funny book. Well, I don't know if it's funny, actually. I saw it on TikTok, which is where I get the most obscure book references or book recommendations. And usually those are the ones that I have the husband on the podcast. And so this next one it's a steamed short. It's called Corn Daddy by, let's see, Helena Woodcock, which I don't think that's a real name, but I saw it on TikTok. It was recommended to me. Actually, the person that recommended to me didn't read it, but they know that I do the episodes with these kind of obscure books with the husband. So they're like, you should read this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can. I think it's about like a scarecrow. So we'll see on that. That's TBD. Let's see. We have God of Malice by Rena Kent. We have The Crown of Oaths and Curses by Jay Bree. I've heard great things about the Book of Azrael. Let's see, who writes that? Something Nicole. It's like God and Monsters series. I'm on like chapter 2, I want to say. Oh, dang it. It just got out. Anyways, I don't know who wrote it. It's not showing me who the author is. The last name is Nicole, though. And then we have Kingdom of Blood and Salt by Alexis Calder. We have Heartless Hunter by Kristen. Oh, gosh, I hate how on the Kindle it has like the Kindle Unlimited thing, but it's always where the author has their name, and so I have to like go into the book to see what it is. Anyways, it's a big thing, but not really. We have Quicksilver by Callie Hart. What else is on here? I got like halfway through The Prison Healer by Lynette Nani, and then I just kind of got bored. I want to finish it, but there just is other books that I would rather read more. And so that is going to stay on the list for a while. Yeah, so that's kind of like the books that I have on my TBR that might match the posts that I have on Instagram. They're just kind of all up in the air, you know? But I'm glad that I was able to read this one and to talk about it because it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. And that's all. That's the rest that I'll say. I hope you believe me that it was a great book. And yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram for my TBR lists. And you can also follow along when I release the episodes, and you can see all about them and mini reviews and all that. So, but anyways, thank you so much for listening to this. Wherever you do listen to this, if you can rate and review, that helps me so much. But I appreciate y'all, and I hope you have the greatest week.